All right, well, welcome everybody to the Language Access Plans Interagency Briefing. We appreciate you guys being here. And with us today, we have a couple of folks. Rafael Morel, he is the CEO of Lighthouse. And we also have Andres Rodriguez with the Office of Passports. I am your GovBrief host. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hey. Oh, and he did make it. It did work. See that? I got you in. It did work. There he is. Andres, so tell us a little bit about what you do over at Office of Passport Services.
I work in the Office of Community Relations. We are the spokespeople for all information related to U.S. passports. My office manages outreach programs around the country through our public passport agencies and all around the country. And then we also manage the official passport information from our website, travel.state.gov. We are the experts in communicating all official information related to how to apply for a U.S. passport.
That is fantastic, and you guys have done a great job. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I'll give you my personal experience, but we want to welcome everybody that's joining us from across the different agencies. Department of State, obviously, thank you for being here, as well as Millennium Challenge. We have folks from Immigration and Customs, and even USDA. We appreciate folks here, and Indian Health. Somebody signed up from Indian Health yesterday, Rafael, so that's an interesting one in and of itself, right? So, but we appreciate you guys joining us. Real quick, we'll give you an overview. We'll get you introductions to these gentlemen and why they're here, as well as some of the initiatives and regulations that are facing your agencies, and get into some best practices, some recommended action steps to keep you on track with your language plans. And we're going to do a case study. The reason Rafael is here is because he's got some really good experience in working with the Army Corps of Engineers on some emergency response. So we're going to go down that path a little bit, but we'll stay broad enough to keep you involved, Andres, if that's okay.
All right.
And with that, if you like the way that these fancy gentlemen look, you can make them bigger. You can grab that the panel on the side. There's a little bar. You can make us bigger or smaller, whatever you would like, and then you can open that panel on the right-hand side, and you will see the handouts that are down there. And there are 3 that are there, with the executive order of 13166, as well as the briefing presentation and Department of Justice tips and tools for language plans. Great information in there as well. If you came in and you're on your computer, you can raise your hand and you can let us know that you would like to talk, or you could chat a question to us, and we'll make sure we circulate that through everybody. As well as if you dialed in on the phone, you need to enter your audio pin, which is, don't do 13, but do whatever number is in there, and then the pound with that number, and then the pound, and we can unmute you, and we can have the dialogue with you directly. It'd be great. And if you would like to send an email, you can send it to support@govbrief.us or govsupport@lighthouse.com. Either one of those will work. And the govsupport@lighthouse.com will be there the whole time, so you can see that throughout this. A real quick disclaimer. This event is not affiliated or endorsed by Department of State or USDA or Army Corps of Engineers or any other federal agency. It is provided to you, the audience, for informational purposes only, and participation in this briefing is voluntary, right, Andres? Couldn't coerce you for this?
No, you didn't.
It's not an indication or endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor. We have to do that, and Andres knows why. A little bit about Lighthouse. Tell us why you're here, Rafael Morel.
Sure. So Lighthouse is based in Puerto Rico. We've been involved for the past 15 years in document translations, as well as live interpretation for live events, as well as trainings and different seminars and things like that. We have offices also in Miami and in Dallas. And throughout the services, we provide not just for the private sector, but also increasingly for institutions and for government agencies, both state and federal. We also provide transcription services and are in our process to finish up our GSA schedule for languages, as well as our hub zone certification. As some of your audience may know, after Hurricane Andrew and Maria, basically 99% of Puerto Rico was habilitated to become a hub zone. So we're trying to take that advantage and become hub zone certified as well.
Excellent. And that's great, because That's a big important thing for folks that are doing purchasing. I know, because doing enough of these briefings, I know that most of the agencies don't meet those hub zones, right? Requirements. And you already mentioned some of this, Andres. Give us an overview of how long have you been at Passport Services, and what do you do there personally?
Yeah, so I've been with the U.S. Department of State since 2006. I've been in my current office since 2010. And I currently maintain the Spanish language multilingual portfolio, among some other duties. But the reason why I'm here is because I've really helped move our organization into a more multilingual area because of the recognition of our huge multilingual client base, which involves anyone applying for a U.S. passport. Many people are applying for passports these days. Last year, we issued over 21 million passports. Our client base is really the entire U.S. population. Anyone who is a U.S. citizen can apply for a passport. And among U.S. citizens, we have many different languages. And so we recognize Spanish as probably the most in need of all languages in the United States. So largely, our efforts have really targeted the Spanish-speaking population. And our goal is just to clearly and effectively communicate what you need to apply for a passport, because when someone doesn't understand what they need, they either don't apply for one or they have problems when they do. And when someone doesn't submit the correct documents, or if someone doesn't fill out an application correctly, it then creates problems for us and frustrations for the customer. So it's really everyone wins by understanding our information, which sometimes needs to be in other languages.
And that's absolutely true. And I can tell you that one of those passports that you did was mine. And it is, I have to say that your ability to deliver and turn around has increased tenfold in the past 10 years. You guys have improved greatly. That's personal experience, just saying. So I just want to give you a shout out there for sure.
Thank you. Happy to hear that.
Great stuff. So why are you here today? We'll launch the poll. Let's see if make sure this works. All right. So are you here because you manage language resources for your agency? I want to learn more about language access plans. I have language access needs, and I work with emergency and recovery, or my boss made me come. So you can let us know what you have, and we'll make sure we get you there as well. So if you can just pop that in and make sure these polls are working here. And you can choose as many as you like. So we'll get those in there. And so I'll give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and all right. 100% of the people here, guys, that responded had managed language access plans, and they want to learn more about it, as well as getting their access needs. So appreciate you guys joining us and making sure that you did that. I appreciate that. So tell us, I know you're involved in this a lot, Andreas, but a lot of this revolves around Executive Order 13166, right? So it has to do with limited English proficiency, and this applies to all agencies, right? It's not just you.
Right.
Right. So improving this access services to persons with limited English proficiency is what it's all about. And so being able to enhance your programs and activities, making sure it's driven to everybody, so that everybody can access these as close to equally as possible. And you still have to be fiscally responsible, but the idea is making sure that you're inclusive to everybody in those agencies. In your agency area that you're servicing. Could be citizens, could be for you, it's everybody in the United States. If you're talking about USDA, could be farmers, right? Or folks that are working with farmers. So it's those types of things. So Department of Justice has tips and tools about this, and specifically with emergency preparedness. And that's why you're here, Rafael, because you did a lot of work down in Puerto Rico, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. But one of the biggest things is identifying language groups in your service area. And we were talking about this earlier as we were preparing, Andreas, about the importance of that, right?
Right.
And making sure that individuals can access all the programs and conducting the outreach efforts to establish those partnerships. So which agencies does this affect? If you're talking about your emergency response, you're looking at a bunch of agencies. You have Department of Transportation. You can see here, this is from FEMA. You can look at DHS, obviously is involved. Army Corps of Engineers for Public Works. You have other folks with Army Corps of Engineers doing search and rescue and managing that. EPA if there's hazards that are operating. Security with Department of Justice, and USDA if it's not, if you have floods in the Midwest and things like that. All of these can be incorporated in emergency functions. Then you have the recovery support functions. So what you have the emergency, and you have to make your change. You have to get out there and help people immediately. And then you have the recovery components. And you can see there's a bunch of agencies here too, including HHS, HUD for housing. Now, were you involved at all, Andres, in Puerto Rico?
Well, we do. We have a U.S. passport agency in San Juan. It's open to the public. It's for anyone who needs a passport within 2 weeks. And during the hurricane, it was shut down. And so that, aside from helping people applying at our public counter, we send work. So there's back office work done at the agency. So there were people who had applied for the passport and their applications were being processed at the agency. So when that agency shut down, there was a need for communicating very widely to people in Puerto Rico, that giving them updates about what to expect about the situation involving their passport application, which involved, their personal documents. And also there was a need for communicating how to get a passport when the agency was shut down, because many people had a need to leave the island, and in some cases they were going to other countries and needed either a travel document, a passport for going to another country, or just a passport for just general ID purposes. And
that very big challenge when the office is closed down, and we'll talk about specifically what happened there in just a minute. It was pretty crazy, right?
And Dave, just to cut in, I can only imagine, Andres, there's estimates that close to, between 30 to 50,000 people, left Puerto Rico, because of the hurricane. And as you're saying, many of them want to at least have an extra official document with them whether they're going to, to the mainland or going to other countries. So I can only imagine in that time of need, you guys not being available and having that increased demand of, we want to get out of here and have this. So, I definitely can sympathize with the troubles you guys were going through. And indeed, Dave, just like you have a personal experience with the passport office, in our case, and we go a lot to that passport office, in San Juan. Sometimes, we have flights, we do stuff in the Caribbean and Latin America, and, the passport's about to not expire, but you have that 6-month gap before you can go international. And, short a couple of weeks or a day or two, we need our people to go there, and every single time we go, they take care of us real nice, real quick. So, kudos to that office as well.
Excellent. Good stuff. You're getting a lot of props there. You got to show up more often, Andres. So Department of Justice Tools and Tips talks about this. Although this document focuses on disaster management, many agencies have a much broader mandate, like you do, Andres. So, in dealing with language access plans, the number one thing is understanding what the language population is. And you don't always know that, especially in the emergency response, but there's ways to be able to do that. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And then talking about getting pre-qualified vendor resources so that you have the contract vehicle in place so that you can execute. Because when you had it in Puerto Rico, you had some challenges with that too, right, Rafael?
Yeah.
So one of the places that you can go is you go to census.gov. And this happens to be Chinese-speaking folks that are located in the United States. And you can see the pockets, the darker dots there, and you'll see they're all over the country, and sometimes not even when you expect them. And this is where your language access plans, once you understand what the population is, then you can jump into into action. And in this instance, we're going to talk about the hurricanes. Again, we're going to talk more about that. And this was pretty traumatic for Puerto Rico, wasn't it, Rafael?
Yes, indeed. And as we do these briefings and as time goes by, we thankfully Puerto Rico continues to to recover from this whole incident. Yet every now and then, every week or so, you still see pockets of areas in Puerto Rico where people are still not like it's still a week after the hurricane, but still significantly impaired. So things are not back to normal. But Category 5 hurricane goes through Puerto Rico. Right before Category 4 hurricane goes by. 2 weeks before that. One right after the other. Unprecedented logistical complications for us when power goes out, cell phone service goes out, phone goes out, road signs go out, traffic lights go out, bank tellers, ATM machines go out. I mean, literally, thrown back 100 years, in 24 hours.
So if you don't have people that understand the area and you have missing road signs, how do you even get around? I mean,
you need to be able to have somebody local to guide you around, not just for the language, component, which we'll speak about, but also just to get a lay of the land, and right. For those of you that have been to Puerto Rico, it's a very hilly, mountainous area where you have a lot of roads. Sometimes you can't stand here and look and know where you're going. You gotta literally know where it is as opposed to rely on something else.
Exactly. So FEMA mobilizes emergency personnel from the states, and they're going into a population that's 72% Spanish only, and 95+% of the folks that are coming from the states don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So because their job isn't to speak Spanish, their job is to help with emergency response, right? So this creates a problem, doesn't it? Because some of the folks that do speak Spanish, what happens with that, Rafael?
Well, what's happening is that they get pulled off task. So you can have, whether you have senior level managers or frontline staff members that are there to do a job, whether it's support for the teams coming in or directly contacts with with the public. Now they can do that job, have been trained, that they're hired, that they are excellent at. Now they got to help out and interact with the public on the language part. So the service delivery slows down from that end, because now you got additional or competing components of who in this office of 20 or 30 or 50 people speak Spanish. Oh, that's our senior guy, so now he can't do any of his stuff. He's getting pulled off every so often for phone calls or media inquiries or interacting directly with other officials or the public.
Exactly. And that's one of the most important things. We'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But we look at this case study. FEMA needed 30 linguists. Army Corps of Engineers needed 25 linguists. And NYSUC needed 15 power brigades. What are power brigades, Rafael?
Sure. So, FEMA comes in as along with a host of agencies. U.S. Army Corps comes in as well. And while once everything is under control, quote unquote, then you have to restore power. In any society nowadays, having that electricity component is key to restore, whether it's emergency services, hospitals, even for the emergency response. If you don't have power in your emergency command center, you can't coordinate anything at all. So a consortium of power utilities from New York State got together and sent trucks and trained personnel to help put back up together, the transformers and the power lines, for the distribution system to get that done. Each of these brigades could easily be between 6 to 10 people, coming down, but they're the ones going street by street, house by house, trying to get the light pole back up, the wires back up, the transformer back up. You got to interact with the neighbors. You might have some cables or wires in somebody's backyard. You got to speak with them, ask for permission to get that stuff out of there. Sometimes a light pole is somebody's backyard and you need access to get to that as well. Or sometimes you might just have neighbors from the street next door coming in to hound you. Hey, when's my street gonna get fixed? So you have all these, electrical staff members up in a, rig, trying to get all these things done, and you have to address, the public and like your stats say, in Spanish. So not alone do you have a language issue, but now you have a skills issue where, you know, your most skilled guy might be the one that knows Spanish. You got to bring him down from the, you know, from the transformer and interact with the public, and then the work slows down and everything gets delayed.
That's exactly right. So that's bringing in the power brigades to do that. So with that, we had, we're going to talk about the Army Corps. They needed 25 linguists. They contacted you on a Thursday. They contracted with you by Saturday, and interpreters were in place by the following Thursday. And
yeah.
and that's not just you had, it's not like you have a pool of people sitting around. You're sitting in the same problem. You're in the middle of Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Where there is no power or anything else.
Yeah, so, you know, we were fortunate enough to have our systems back up and be able, you know, to, you know, check our email, you know, check our phones, you know, have our stuff in order. But so the Army Corps of Engineers, you know, once, you know, there was a massive mobilization for power generators to Puerto Rico. You know, they couldn't get the regular power grid up in time. So at one point, you know, during the deployment, you know, they had close to 1,100 power generators, you know, from small, you know, like the ones that you might have in your house to, you know, ones that almost look like a whole trailer, you know, for hospitals and correction facilities running. Army Corps, you know, contracts out, you know, the generators, they contract out the fuel and oil for it, but they have to go and check it out and service it. For that, you know, they have to go through all 78 municipalities in Puerto Rico, you know, including the smaller islands, you know, off on the east side of Puerto Rico. They get here, there's no signs, they don't know the area, and as farther away you get from the metro areas, you know, the language proficiency for English, you know, continues to go down. So, you know, they reached out to us, hey, you know, we have 25 QAs going out there every day and, you know, driving a Jeep all across Puerto Rico. They're getting lost. They're not doing their work because it's impossible to get through. And when they stop to ask for directions, they can't understand each other. You know, do you have some guys that can help out and do this? You know, so we you know, and again, these are generators that are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that, you know, they have to get visited every day. So when they asked us, you know, how soon can you be ready? You know, we're like, well, how soon do you need us? Well, we need you tomorrow. Because, you know, we have generators running already. So, you know, it was a very short time frame that we had to put all this together.
And one of the main reasons that it worked is because you actually had your ducks in a row first. You had an emergency plan in place and you were following your procedures. You already had satellite phone and internet redundancy, because otherwise you wouldn't have been able to communicate yourself.
Exactly. So
you had power generation and the safe building. This is really impressive, because when we talked to folks from Army Corps of Engineers about this, it's this type of an environment that creates your ability to service them where they would not be able to be serviced. And when you're talking about 25 people, that doesn't mean you had to have 25 interpreters. You had to have more than that, didn't you?
Right, because, you know, their operation was running 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we actually ended up doing that for close to 10 months, you know, from November all the way through September of last year. So, you know, any day one of my guys, let's say, can't show up, that's one brigade less that gets to go out through Puerto Rico and get that done. So, you know, we had to build in some redundancy. You know, at one point we had close to 80 people, you know, available, you know, in different shifts and rotations, so that, you know, we don't want to have the same guy, you know, 14, 21 days in a row working 12-hour days, because, you know, that's, you know, at one point he's not going to be able that helpful anyway. So, you know, we had to, you know, and if somebody's sick at 2 a.m. and they have to report at 6 a.m. the next day, you know, we got to have that extra guy to be able to fill in that spot. So, you know, it wasn't just 25, it was 25 slots, you know, with a whole series of people around it to make sure that we did have those 25 every day.
And I think what you said about the situational awareness, that you're going into a place where somebody may be not exactly even tempered because they haven't had power for a couple of weeks, and they're trying to figure out when their power is going to come on. So they have to be able to handle those situations. That's a challenging thing. So with that, the emergency best practices is hire the experts. Don't rely on those internal resources, because they can't do both jobs effectively, right? and hire a qualified company, not individuals. You had situations where other agencies were reaching out to individuals, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, for example, with the New York State Utilities contingency, when they reached out to us, it was about 3 weeks into when they had gotten to Puerto Rico, and the way that they tried it first was trying to reach out individuals, to provide the linguist service. But those individuals, and again, everybody in Puerto Rico was going through the same emergency situation. So if somebody didn't have water in their house or their power generator, they couldn't get the gas to fill it in, then they wouldn't show up to work the next day. So eventually they said, hey, we need somebody to guarantee us that we are going to have 5 or 10 or 15 people coming in every day. We would rather go through you instead of having 15 people individually and have 5 of them every day saying, hey, I'm coming in late, or hey, I can't come in, because then it slows our work. And then, we have a commitment to a mission that we have to be able to fulfill, one way or the other. So that's what, so instead of hiring individuals, they came to us, and then we had to, build all the redundancy, all the things we do, and all the training. You mentioned situational awareness. When you're up, like you mentioned, visiting the countryside or even in the city, and you have people that have lost their house, have lost their roof, water came in, they lost all their belongings, they're not in the best of moods, the tolerance level goes down. So, when you tell them, oh, we're done for today, we're not going to get to your street or to your house till tomorrow, and you're one house away from them, you got to be able to, train our people to serve as that buffer and as ambassadors, right? To make sure that things stay on the positive, and things don't escalate to something, unfortunate or regrettable, people getting upset.
Exactly. And most of the time when people get upset, and Andres, you can throw it on this as well, people get upset because the communication isn't happening effectively a lot of times. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And we see that every day, both at our public agencies, but then also when we communicate to customers via email, or we send out a lot of letters when people have issues with their passport applications. And when people don't understand the information, they get frustrated or just don't take action. And that leads to, in our organization, that could lead to, someone not being issued a passport, or and not getting what they originally wanted.
Exactly. And so communication, obviously, very important. The financial viability for you to be able to support that, because when you have a contract of that size, the money doesn't flow immediately, does it, Rafael?
Indeed. And again, it's just, of the things that we learned, of what we went through, and internally as a company, we became much stronger out of the whole process and interacting with the government agencies, and having a better sense of what they look for and what they need. But any agency, whether it's an emergency situation or normal situation, but especially in an emergency situation, you got to make sure that you're getting the right partner, the right vendor, to help you out. Fortunately, here in Puerto Rico, we saw it 3 or 4 different times where, the vendor that got contracted for other types of services or goods just was not able to deliver. So, we had a couple of issues here with, let's say with tarps for roofs or for other types of things, where those contracts end up getting, rejected due to non-performance. And then at the end of the day, the ones that suffer is the person, who's waiting to get their house fixed. And now they're delayed 2, 3, 4, 6 months, something that, could have done earlier if that vendor, would have been ready. So, us as vendors, interacting with different government agencies, we also have to, do our part. And, if we say we can do it, we got to be sure we can do it.
Do it. Right. So with that, emergency best practice for emergencies in this instance, but no matter what, you want to understand the language dynamic. You can do that from going to the census website. And then for emergency side, require your vendors to have an emergency plan and have emergency assets on within their company, so that they know they're not going to be down from the word go. When you were, everybody else was down, you were up, and that's what made the biggest difference. And that's why this is a great best in class and practices. So your financial viability, make sure they have a safety plan. Very important to have a safety plan. 100% personal protection equipment. You did this for your folks. You made sure they all had hard hats, boots, vests, and goggles, so that they could get out and do their job. Because if they didn't have those, they would be putting themselves in danger, right?
Indeed, indeed.
So awesome. Well, with this next poll, we're going to ask the question is, what is your biggest language issue? Is it that my agency doesn't have a current language access plan? That shouldn't be the case. But access to qualified contractors, costs, and budget. It could be any of these. You can choose as many as you want, or something else. Please contact me. So you can reach out to us. And with that, we're going to give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, and very good. So there you go. 100% said access to qualified vendors, and 50% said something else, please contact me. Appreciate that. Thank you for your participation in that. If you have any questions, open up that panel and we'll be able to connect you with these guys. We have a couple minutes that we can talk. Let's see if anybody has any. Hang on one sec. I'll get this open. Will the presentation be made available? Yes, the presentation will be made available, and it's actually being recorded as well, so you can watch it over and over for your entertainment purposes and share it with all your friends. So what do you think about that, Andres? But you didn't expect that to be happening. So with that, and where can we find the information for Department of Justice? In the handouts, if you open up the side, you'll see there's Department of Justice 2016 Tips and Tools. It's a PDF. You can download that as well. And the presentation's in there as well. All right. And can you supply the census link? Yes, we will supply the census link to you so that you can gain access to that as well. I can answer all those. That's all my questions. No questions for our guys here? Well, if you do, you can ask them, and we'll make sure that we'll get that information out. So protecting your agency, pre-qualify your vendors. It would have been much faster if they already had a contract vehicle in place with you in Puerto Rico, wouldn't it, Rafael?
Yes, it would have. Yep.
So that's one of the things, is making sure that you can go out and make sure it's scale, that they can scale. And they have professional vetting and background checks. Very important, because you're dealing with a very sensitive situation, especially in the emergency. But you also, any type of communication can be sensitive, right, Andreas?
Absolutely. For us, we have many different means of communication, whether it be in person, email, social media. And so you really have to think of all the touch points of who you're trying to communicate with.
And sometimes that information is very personal, especially in your world, right?
Yes, absolutely. So that's actually a big challenge of ours when we're trying to communicate with someone who, they're not speaking Spanish. We have a lot of resources, many different employees in my office. We can communicate easily in Spanish, but it's harder when we're dealing with more, languages where we don't maybe have the means to communicate with someone who speaks a more lesser spoken language. That's our probably one of our biggest issues is we do speak many languages. We have resources where we can communicate in different languages, but we can't cover all the languages at all times. So that's mainly our biggest challenge.
Yeah, and I can imagine, because there isn't a language that you don't have to address at some point, right?
Right. And so domestically, that's really where we've gone in to really study who we're communicating to, and to identify putting our efforts at the largest needs, which sometimes countrywide, it's Spanish, but then we have regional needs also. In the Miami, Southern Florida region, there's Haitian Creole. In the Detroit, Michigan region, there's Arabic. On both coasts, there can be, needs for Mandarin or Cantonese, Tagalog. So for us, we really look at the local needs and then matching it with, our capabilities.
So out here in Baltimore, we have Baltimoreese. You probably don't even know what that is.
I've been in DC for almost 10 years, and I'm not
so
an
if I say, if I say, hey, hon, we're going down the ocean, you know, that means that's Baltimoreese. So anyway, that's not an official dialect, so please hold all your responses. But yeah, in knowing the language dynamics, to your point, there isn't any language that doesn't you're not required, and it isn't always the people that are here. It's sometimes their parents, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we issue U.S. passports to U.S. citizens, and sometimes we're issuing to children whose parents may not have citizenship. So, but we need the parents to understand how to fill out the application, and we need them to know that if their kid is under 16 years old, we need both parents there to give consent. So there's really important information that needs to be translated into other languages outside of English. So that's one of our biggest challenges.
That is awesome. Well, we appreciate that, and but know the language dynamics and don't rely on internal bilingual abilities because you get pulled off task, right, Raphael?
Indeed, indeed, and and I think especially in emergency situations, where time is of essence, you want to make sure that you have as many of your components already in place, and that includes the human resources, and if you have your whole team fully delegated and everybody knows what they're doing, things go much faster, and you can definitely get to those that you need much quicker.
Excellent. All right, so we have one more poll for you guys, and then we're going to do a quick follow-up, a recap. So when do you anticipate a language requirement? Do you have one immediately? Is it Q4 2019, which is now, Q1 2020, or Q2 2020, or maybe you're not sure? So just let us know where you are, and let's see, it looks like most everybody's already responded, which is great. So we can do this, and we'll share the results. 100% of them are not sure, so we will make sure that you have everything that you need as a result, so that you can gain access to the folks. It's great that you guys decided to be here. As far as being able to if you are more interested in Lighthouse, you can reach out to them. You're a Hispanic-owned small business in Puerto Rico, correct?
Indeed.
And you have multiple offices around the United States, so you can gain access there. And you do have your GSA schedule coming. That's a process in and of itself, isn't it?
It is. It is quite challenging, but we're almost there.
Almost there. So, and your hub zone is pending as well. So, but right now, if you need to get to their services, they can do through partners or through direct contract, which you've done multiple times already. Recap email is what you will get next week. You'll have the briefing presentation, the handouts, Q&A, the link to the video, and if you would like one-on-one discussion with anybody, with Raphael, if you would like. And with that, we're going to let everybody go. Raphael Morel, thanks so much. And Andres, welcome aboard for the first time. Wasn't so painful, was it?
No, it was easy. Glad to be here.
Awesome. If you'd like to reach out to them, their information is there. Any parting statements from you, Raphael, and then we'll get to you, Andres.
Now, I think reach out early enough in terms of your language service plans and your language needs, and speak to your vendor, even if you're still in that process of figuring out what you need. I saw that some of them, didn't really have or know when they might have a need, but, reach out to the vendors early enough, try to meet capabilities and ask questions, ask us questions. We do this every day. So if you're still trying to figure out, how to put all this together, maybe you don't know which languages you might need to do. Maybe you don't know which format, whether it's digital or print, or verbally or online, just reach out to us. We're here to help. We want to make sure that whatever you guys decide putting out there, something that's going to work and help the agency, serve our public.
Excellent. How about you, Andres?
Feel free to reach out. I can answer questions from people who need to work with existing resources, with big challenges. We've done our best to try to communicate to the entire U.S. population in as many languages as possible. We can't do it all, but we've done a lot with our existing resources. We have printed information in 11 different languages, And we've done a really great job at slowly translating the majority of our passport information online, and then also utilizing a bilingual call center. And then we have hiring abilities and strategies to try to bring on individuals who speak other languages as well, who can assist customers in person. But yeah, I'm happy to help answer questions for anyone trying to just do as much as they can with limited resources.
Hey, and that's what it's all about, right?
Yep.
Because if you have unlimited resources, you have a different agency. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. Again, Andres, very, very special thanks to you for joining us. Thank you very much. And Rafael, it's always great to see you. And I'll see you next week, Andreas, because I'm going to be down your way. You're going to on Thursday, right?
Yes, that's right. I'll be happy to meet you in person.
That'd be great. Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.